Ethan Caldwell's key turned in the lock of his sprawling suburban mansion. He stepped inside, loosening his tie and feeling the weight of another long day at the office. The house was quiet, almost too quiet. "Lily," he called out, his voice echoing through the cavernous foyer. He found her in the kitchen, arranging flowers in a vase. Her shoulder-length brown hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, and she wore yoga pants and a fitted top. She glanced up as he entered, her blue eyes cool and distant. "You're home," she said, her tone flat and impersonal. Ethan leaned in for a kiss, but Lily turned her cheek at the last moment, his lips grazing her skin instead of meeting hers. He pulled back, a frown creasing his brow. "How was your day?" he asked, trying to keep his voice light. Lily shrugged, her attention back on the flowers. "Fine. The kids are already in bed." Ethan nodded, unsure what else to say. The silence stretched between them, thick and uncomfortable. He loosened his tie further, feeling like it was choking him. "I've got a big project coming up," he said, attempting to fill the void. "The Riverside development. It's going to be huge for the company." Lily made a non-committal sound, not looking up from her task. Ethan's shoulders slumped. When had their conversations become so strained? He couldn't pinpoint an exact moment, but the distance had been growing for months now. "I'm good. Check on the kids," he said finally, retreating from the kitchen. As he climbed the stairs, Ethan's mind raced. He paused outside his daughter Olivia's room, pushing the door open quietly. The 13-year-old was fast asleep, her features peaceful in the dim light. Next, he peeked into 7-year-old Jack's room. The boy was curled up tightly, clutching a stuffed dinosaur. Ethan's heart clenched. He'd missed bedtime again. How many stories had he not read? How many goodnight kisses had he missed? The mounting pressure at work was taking its toll, not just on him, but on his family as well. Returning downstairs, he found Lily in the living room, scrolling through her phone. She didn't look up as he entered. "I was thinking," Ethan began hesitantly, "maybe we could take a weekend trip soon. Just the two of us. It's been a while since we've had some time alone." Lily's eyes flicked up to meet his, then back to her phone. "I don't know, Ethan. I've got a lot going on right now." "Right," he said, deflating. "Of course. Maybe another time." He retreated to his home office, closing the door behind him. Sitting at his desk, he buried his face in his hands. What was happening to them? They used to be so in sync, finishing each other's sentences and laughing at inside jokes. Now, every interaction felt forced, every silence loaded with unspoken tension. Ethan's phone buzzed, jolting him from his thoughts. It was a message from his business partner and close friend Adam. "Need to talk ASAP. Big changes coming for the Riverside project. Call me." Ethan sighed, glancing at the clock. It was late, but the Riverside project was their biggest deal yet. He couldn't afford to let anything slip through the cracks. He dialed Adam's number, bracing himself for another long night of work discussions. As he talked business with Adam, going over blueprints and zoning laws, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Not just with Lily, but with everything. A nagging sensation in the pit of his stomach told him that his carefully constructed world was about to come crashing down around him. He just didn't know how right he was. A few evenings later, Ethan arrived home earlier than usual, determined to spend some quality time with his family. He found Lily in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner. "Hey," he said, setting his briefcase down. "Need any help?" Lily glanced up, surprise flickering across her face. "You're home early. Thought I'd try to make it for dinner for once," Ethan replied with a small smile. "Where are the kids?" "Olivia's at soccer practice. Jack's upstairs playing video games." Ethan nodded, rolling up his sleeves. "I'll go get him to set the table." As he turned to leave, Lily's voice stopped him. "Ethan." She looked back, hope rising in her chest. For a moment, something softer crossed Lily's features, then it was gone, replaced by her familiar mask of indifference. Never mind. It's not important. Ethan's shoulders slumped as he climbed the stairs. He found Jack in his room, engrossed in a racing game on his tablet. "Hey, buddy," Ethan said, ruffling his son's hair. "Time to pause that and help set the table." Jack groaned but complied, following his father downstairs. As they set the table together, Ethan tried to engage Jack in conversation, asking about school and his friends. Jack's answers were enthusiastic but brief, as if he wasn't used to this level of attention from his father. Dinner was a quiet affair. Olivia returned home halfway through, grabbing a plate and eating quickly before disappearing to a room to do homework. Ethan tried to maintain a conversation, but his attempts fell flat. Lily responded with one-word answers, and Jack seemed more interested in pushing his vegetables around his plate than talking. After dinner, as Ethan was helping clear the table, he noticed Lily acting strangely. She kept glancing at her phone, her movements jittery and nervous. When she thought he wasn't looking, she slipped out of the kitchen into the hallway. Curiosity piqued. Ethan followed quietly. He watched as Lily glanced around furtively before reaching up to the air vent near the ceiling. With practiced ease, she slipped something into the vent and quickly replaced the cover. Ethan's heart began to race. What was she hiding? He waited until Lily had returned to the kitchen before approaching the vent, standing on tiptoes. He carefully removed the cover and reached inside. His fingers closed around something small and rectangular, a burner phone, to be precise. With shaking hands, Ethan turned on the device. The screen lit up, revealing a new message. "He'll be gone tonight. It's our chance. Come over, and we'll have a wonderful night together." Ethan's world tilted on its axis. The phone slipped from his numb fingers, clattering to the floor. He stumbled back, leaning against the wall for support. This couldn't be happening. Lily wouldn't. She couldn't. But the evidence was right there in front of him. The secret phone, the hushed behavior, the growing distance between them. It all suddenly made horrifying sense. Ethan's mind raced. Who was she meeting? How long had this been going on? And what did it mean for their marriage, for their family? He heard footsteps approaching and quickly shoved the phone back into the vent, replacing the cover with trembling hands. He barely made it into the living room before Lily appeared. "Everything okay?" she asked, her voice casual but her eyes sharp and watchful. Ethan forced himself to meet her gaze, fighting to keep his voice steady. "Yeah, just getting some air. I think I might have to go back to the office for a bit. The Riverside project." Lily nodded, a strange expression crossing her face. "Of course. Don't work too late." As Ethan gathered his things to leave, his mind was whirling. He needed proof, concrete, undeniable evidence of what was happening. Only then could he decide how to proceed. With a heavy heart, Ethan made a decision. He would set up hidden cameras throughout the house. The thought made him sick, but he had to know the truth. He had to see it with his own eyes. As he drove away from the house, Ethan felt like a stranger in his own life. Everything he thought he knew, everything he had built his world upon, was crumbling around him. And the worst was yet to come. The next day, Ethan put his plan into motion. He feigned a work emergency, telling Lily he had to go into the office for a few hours on Saturday. Instead, he drove to an electronics store in the next town over, purchasing a set of small wireless cameras. His hand shook as he installed them throughout the house, carefully hiding them in inconspicuous places, one in a bookshelf in the living room, another disguised as a smoke detector in the hallway, a third tucked into a potted plant in the kitchen. Each placement felt like a betrayal, a violation of the trust that should have been the foundation of his marriage. But the memory of that text message steeled his resolve. He had to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. That evening, Ethan announced that he had to go back to the office to deal with a crisis on the Riverside project. Lily barely looked up from her phone, nearly nodding in acknowledgement. "Don't wait up," Ethan said, his voice surprisingly steady given the turmoil inside him. "This might take all night." "Okay," Lily replied, her tone indifferent. Drive safe. Ethan's chest tightened at her lack of concern and how easily she accepted his absence. Had it always been this way, and he'd just never noticed? Or was this a recent development, born from her apparent infidelity? He got in his car and drove, but instead of heading to the office, he parked down the street from their house. With shaking hands, he pulled out his phone and opened the app connected to the hidden cameras. For a long time, nothing happened. Lily moved around the house, tidying up, checking on the kids. Ethan's guilt grew with each passing minute. Maybe he had misunderstood. Maybe this was all a horrible mistake. Then, just as he was about to give up and drive home, he saw movement on the screen. Someone was walking up to their front door. Ethan's breath caught in his throat as he recognized the figure. Adam, his business partner. His friend. Ethan watched in stunned disbelief as Lily opened the door, a smile lighting up her face, a smile Ethan hadn't seen directed at him in months. Adam stepped inside, and before the door even closed behind him, he pulled Lily into a passionate embrace. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Ethan's vision blurred, his ears ringing. This couldn't be happening. Not Adam. Not the man he trusted with his business, his friendship, his confidences. But the evidence was right there on the screen, undeniable and devastating. Ethan watched, feeling sick, as Lily let Adam upstairs, out of view of the cameras. He sat there in his car for hours, alternating between numb disbelief and white-hot rage. Every foundation of his life had just been shattered. His marriage, his friendship, his trust, all destroyed in a single moment. As the first light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, Ethan finally stirred. He had decisions to make. Confronting them immediately would be too easy, too quick. No, this betrayal deserved something far more calculated. With a cold determination settling over him, Ethan started his car and drove away. He had work to do, plans to make, a life to rebuild from the ashes of betrayal. And as for Lily and Adam, they had no idea what was coming. But they would. Adam Matthews stood in his corner office, staring out at the city skyline. His fingers drummed an erratic rhythm on the polished mahogany desk. Something wasn't right. He could feel it in his bones, a nagging sensation that refused to dissipate. The Riverside project, their biggest deal to date, was falling apart. Investors were pulling out, citing unforeseen complications. Zoning permits that had seemed all but guaranteed were suddenly mired in red tape. And through it all, Ethan remained infuriatingly calm. He expressed the appropriate level of concern when deals fell through. He worked just as hard as always to try and salvage what they could. But there was something off about him. A glint in his eye that Adam couldn't quite read. A knock at the door made him jump. "Come in," he called, straightening his tie and plastering on a smile. Ethan walked in, looking as put together as always in his tailored suit, but there was something different about him lately. A coldness in his eyes that Adam couldn't quite place. "Adam," Ethan said, his voice carefully neutral. "We need to discuss the Thompson account." Adam nodded, gesturing for Ethan to take a seat. As they went over the details of the account, Adam couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something. Ethan's questions were pointed, almost accusatory. But every time, Adam thought he'd caught a glimpse of suspicion in his partner's eyes. It vanished, replaced by that same inscrutable calm. Later that evening, as Adam was packing up to leave, his computer pinged with a new email. The sender was anonymous. The subject line simply read, "We know." With shaking hands, Adam opened the message. Inside was a single line of text. "The truth always comes out." Attached was a photo. Adam's blood ran cold as he recognized it. Himself and Lily locked in an embrace outside her favorite restaurant, the very place he'd sworn they'd never be seen together. Adam slammed his laptop shut, his heart pounding. Who had sent this? Who else knew? And more importantly, did Ethan know? He grabbed his phone, dialing Lily's number. She picked up on the first ring. "Adam, what's wrong?" Her voice was tense, wary. "We need to meet. Now. Something's happened." As he hung up, Adam couldn't shake the feeling that the walls were closing in. Someone was watching him. He was sure of it. And whoever it was, they knew far too much. Lily paced the length of her living room, her nerves frayed to the breaking point. Adam's cryptic call had left her rattled. What could have happened? Had Ethan found out? She glanced at the clock. Ethan would be home soon. She had to pull herself together, had to maintain the facade of the perfect wife. But it was getting harder with each passing day. The sound of a key in the lock made her freeze. Ethan walked in, his face unreadable as always these days. "Hesley," she said, forcing a smile. "How was work?" Ethan shrugged, setting down his briefcase. "Same as usual." "You okay? You look pale." Lily waved off his concern. "Just a headache. I think I might lie down for a bit." As she retreated to the bedroom, Lily's mind raced. She had to talk to Adam, had to know what was going on. But how? Ethan seemed to be everywhere lately, always watching, always listening. She pulled out her burner phone, typing out a quick message. "I'm home, can't talk now. Meet tomorrow." The response came almost immediately. "No, too risky. Something's wrong. Watch your back." Lily sank onto the bed, her hands shaking. What had they gotten themselves into? It was supposed to be simple. A little affair, a little manipulation of the company finances, and they'd be set for life. Ethan would be out, and she and Adam would have everything. But now it felt like they were caught in a web of their own making, and the spider was closing in. Ethan sat in his home office, a glass of scotch in hand, watching the feeds from the hidden cameras. Lily was in the bedroom, hunched over her phone. Even from this distance, he could see the fear in her posture. Good, he thought. He took a sip of his drink, savoring the burn. The anonymous email to Adam had been a masterstroke. Let them stew in their own paranoia for a while. Let them make mistakes. His own phone buzzed. A message from Claire. "Everything's in place. Ready when you are." Ethan allowed himself a small smile. Claire had been invaluable these past few weeks. Her legal expertise, her connections, and her unwavering support. He'd forgotten what it was like to have someone in his corner. He typed out a response. "Good. We move forward tomorrow. Be ready." Setting down his phone, Ethan leaned back in his chair, closing his eyes. The rage that had consumed him when he first discovered Lily and Adam's betrayal had cooled into something harder, colder, more dangerous. They thought they were so clever, plotting behind his back. They had no idea what was coming. Tomorrow, at the company's annual charity gala, he would begin to tighten the noose. A few well-placed comments here, a pointed question there. By the time the night was over, the first cracks in Adam's carefully constructed facade would begin to show. And Lily? She would have a front-row seat to the destruction of everything she'd hoped to gain. Ethan opened his eyes, his gaze falling on a family photo on his desk. His children's smiling faces stared back at him. For a moment, doubt crept in. Was he doing the right thing? Was this path of revenge worth the cost? But then he remembered the look on Lily's face as she kissed Adam, the casual way they applauded to destroy him. There was no turning back now. The game was in motion, and Ethan intended to win, no matter the cost. Olivia Caldwell was many things: a straight-A student, captain of the debate team, and at 13 already wise beyond her years. But right now, crouched in the hallway outside her parents' bedroom, she felt like nothing more than a scared little girl. She hadn't meant to eavesdrop. She'd just been looking for a phone charger when she'd heard her father's voice, low and intense, coming from the master bedroom. Curiosity had gotten the better of her, and now she wished she'd never heard a word. Hidden cameras all over the house. Your father is saying, I had to know the truth. Hidden cameras. What truth? Olivia's mind reeled. Jesus, Ethan. That was Claire, her father's old friend, the one who'd been around a lot lately. And you're sure about Lily and Adam? I saw it with my own eyes, Claire. They'd been having an affair for months. And that's not even the worst of it. They'd been embezzling from the company, manipulating accounts. They were planning to push me out, leave me with nothing. Olivia clapped a hand over her mouth to stifle a gasp. Her mother and Uncle Adam. It couldn't be true. And yet it explained so much. The tension in the house, the way her parents barely spoke anymore. "What are you going to do?" Claire asked. There was a long pause before her father answered. When he did, his voice was cold in a way Olivia had never heard before. "I'm going to destroy them, both of them. They'll wish they'd never even thought of betraying me." Olivia couldn't listen anymore. She stumbled back to her room, her mind a whirlwind of confusion and hurt. Her perfect family, her perfect life. It had all been a lie. She sat on her bed, hugging her knees to her chest, trying to make sense of it all. Should she confront her parents? Tell her little brother? Run away? A soft knock at her door made her jump. "Olivia, can I come in?" She wanted to say no, to pretend she was asleep, to hide from the truth a little longer. But some part of her, the part that had always been Daddy's little girl, made her call out, "Yeah, come in." Ethan entered, his face lined with worry. "You heard." Olivia nodded, unable to speak past a lump in her throat. Ethan sighed, sitting down next to her on the bed. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I never wanted you to find out like this. I never wanted you to find out at all." "Is it true?" Olivia whispered about Mom and Uncle Adam. Ethan nodded, his eyes sad. "I'm afraid so." "And the cameras? You've been spying on us." "Not on you or Jack," Ethan said quickly. "Never on you kids. I just had to know what was going on." "I'm so sorry, Olivia. I know this must be so confusing and scary for you." Olivia was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then, to her own surprise, she felt a spark of anger ignite in her chest. "How could they do this?" she demanded. "How could Mom betray us like this? And Uncle Adam, I trusted him." Ethan pulled her into a hug, and Olivia let herself cry into his shirt. As her sobs subsided, she pulled back, wiping her eyes. "What are you going to do?" she asked, echoing Claire's earlier question. Ethan hesitated, clearly wrestling with how much to tell her. "I'm going to make sure they can't hurt us anymore," he said finally. "I'm going to protect you and Jack, no matter what." Olivia nodded slowly. Then, squaring her shoulders, she made a decision. "I want to help," she said firmly. Ethan's eyes widened. "Olivia, no, this isn't your fight. I don't want you involved in this mess." "I'm already involved," Olivia argued. "They betrayed me too. And I want to help make it right." Ethan studied her face for a long moment. Then, with a mixture of pride and sadness, he nodded. "Okay," he said softly. "But we do this carefully. And if at any point you want out, you tell me. Deal?" Olivia nodded, a determination settling over her. "Deal." As Ethan left her room, Olivia's mind was already racing with possibilities. She may be young, but she was smart, and she knew her mother better than anyone. If her father needed inside information, well, who better to provide it than a seemingly innocent teenage daughter? Lily was losing her mind. There was no other explanation for the constant feeling of being watched. The prickling sensation on the back of her neck, the way shadows seemed to move in the corner of her eye. She jumped at every unexpected sound, flinched at every touch. Even Adam, once her source of comfort and excitement, now felt like a threat. His impatience, his growing desperation. It was all too much. "Mom." Olivia's voice made her start. "Are you okay?" Lily forced a smile, turning to face her daughter. "Of course, sweetie, just a little tired." "How was school?" Olivia shrugged, dropping her backpack on the kitchen counter. "Same old. Hey, I was thinking, maybe we could have a girls' day this weekend. Go shopping. Get our nails done." Lily blinked, surprised. Olivia had been distant lately, wrapped up in her own teenage world. This sudden desire for mother-daughter bonding was unexpected, but not unwelcome. That sounds lovely, Lily said, her smile genuine this time. Saturday. Olivia nodded, grinning. It's a date. As her daughter bounded upstairs, Lily felt a pang of guilt. She'd been so wrapped up in her affair with Adam, in their plans for the future, that she'd neglected her children. Maybe this was a sign, a chance to reconnect, to remember what really mattered. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Another text from Adam, no doubt. Another demand for updates, for reassurance. Lily ignored it. For now, at least, she wanted to focus on her daughter, on being a good mother. She had no idea that Olivia's invitation was anything but innocent, that her daughter was now an active player in the game of deception and revenge that was about to destroy everything Lily held dear. Adam paced his office, his nerves frayed to the breaking point. The anonymous emails hadn't stopped. Every day, sometimes multiple times a day, another cryptic message would arrive, always hinting at knowledge of his affair with Lily, of their plans for the company. But it was more than that now. Deals were falling through left and right. Clients he'd thought were locked in were suddenly backing out, citing concerns about the company's stability. And through it all, Ethan remained infuriatingly calm. Oh, he expressed the appropriate level of concern when deals fell through. He worked just as hard as always to try and salvage what they could, but there was something off about him. A glint in his eye that Adam couldn't quite read. A knock at his door made him jump. "Come in," he called, trying to keep his voice steady. It was Sandra from HR, looking uncomfortable. "Mr. Matthews, we've had some concerns raised about your conduct. The board has requested a formal review." Adam felt the blood drain from his face. "What? What concerns? Who raised them?" Sandra shook her head. "I'm not at liberty to say, but there will be a hearing next week. I suggest you prepare." As she left, Adam sank into his chair, his head spinning. This couldn't be happening. Everything was falling apart, and he had no idea how to stop it. His phone buzzed. A text from Lily. "We need to talk. Now." Adam closed his eyes, fighting back a wave of nausea. He had a feeling things were about to get much, much worse. Ethan Caldwell stood at the podium, surveying the room full of board members, investors, and employees. The annual company gala was in full swing, champagne flowing freely as people mingled. Tension crackled in the air. He caught sight of Adam across the room, looking pale and drawn. "Good," Ethan thought. "Let him sweat." Tapping his glass for attention, Ethan cleared his throat. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please." The room quieted, all eyes turning to him. Ethan allowed himself a small smile. "Showtime. First, I want to thank you all for coming tonight. Your support of our charitable initiatives means the world to us, but I'm afraid I have some concerning news to share." A murmur ran through the crowd. Adam, Ethan noticed with satisfaction, had gone even paler. "It has come to my attention that there have been some irregularities in our financial records. Nothing concrete yet, but enough to warrant a full investigation." The murmur grew louder. Ethan held up a hand for quiet. "I want to assure you all that we will get to the bottom of this. Transparency and integrity are the cornerstone of our business, and we will not rest until every discrepancy is accounted for." His eyes found Adam's across the room. The implication was clear. Adam looked like he might be sick. As Ethan stepped down from the podium, he was immediately surrounded by concerned board members and investors. He fielded their questions calmly, always steering the conversation back to the need for a thorough investigation. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Adam slip out of the ballroom, phone pressed to his ear. No doubt calling Lily in a panic, Ethan allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The trap was set. Now all he had to do was wait for them to spring it. Lily paced her living room, her heart pounding. Adam's frantic call had left her reeling. An investigation. Financial irregularities. How had Ethan found out? She jumped at the sound of a key in the lock. "Ethan," she forced herself to take a deep breath. to school her features into a mask of calm curiosity. "Hey," she said as he walked in. "How was the gala?" Ethan's face was unreadable as he loosened his tie. "Eventful," he said simply. "We need to talk, Lily." The calmness in his voice sent a chill down her spine. This wasn't the reaction of a man who had just discovered his wife's betrayal. This was something else entirely. "What's going on?" she asked, finding it hard to keep her voice steady. Adam called. He sounded upset about something at work. Ethan's eyes narrowed slightly. "Did he now? And what exactly did he tell you?" Lily swallowed hard. "Just that there were some problems. Something about an investigation." Ethan nodded slowly. His gaze never left her face. "That's right. We've uncovered some discrepancies in the company finances. Quite serious ones, actually." He took a step closer, and Lily found herself backing away instinctively. "The funny thing is, Lily, a lot of these discrepancies seem to lead back to Adam. And to you." Lily felt the blood drain from her face. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not involved in the company finances." "No." Ethan's voice was dangerously soft now. "Then perhaps you can explain why there are large sums of money being transferred from our joint account to an offshore one in your name." Lily's mind raced. How had he found out? They'd been so careful. "Ethan, I can explain." "Can you?" He cut her off. "Can you explain the affair, Lily? Can you explain why my wife and my best friend have been plotting to destroy me?" The calm mask had slipped now, revealing the cold fury that made Lily take another step back. How long have you known?" "Long enough," Ethan said. "Long enough to gather all the evidence I need. Long enough to make sure that when I'm done, you and Adam will have nothing left." Panic rose in Lily's throat. This couldn't be happening. It wasn't supposed to go like this. "The children will stay with me." Ethan finished. "You really think any judge would grant custody to a woman who tried to defraud her own husband, who was planning to leave her children without a penny to their name?" Tears welled in Lily's eyes. "Please, Ethan, we can work this out. For the kids' sake, don't you dare bring the children into this." Ethan snarled, his composure finally cracking. "You lost the right to use them as a bargaining chip the moment you decided to betray this family." He turned away, his shoulders rigid with tension. "I've already spoken to my lawyer. You'll be served with divorce papers in the morning. I suggest you start packing." Lily felt her world crumbling around her. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. They were supposed to win. She and Adam were supposed to have everything. "What about Adam?" she asked, her voice small. Ethan glanced back at her, his eyes cold. "Oh, don't worry. I have special plans for Adam. By this time tomorrow, he'll wish he'd never even thought of crossing me." As Ethan walked out of the room, Lily sank to the floor, her body racked with sobs. How had it all gone so wrong? And more importantly, what was she going to do now? Across town, Adam sat in his darkened office, a glass of whiskey trembling in his hand. His phone had been ringing nonstop. Board members demanding explanations, investors threatening to pull out, reporters sniffing for a story. He tried calling Lily, but her phone went straight to voicemail. Had Ethan gotten to her already? Were they too late? A soft knock at the door made him jump, sloshing whiskey over his hand. "Go away," he called out, his voice hoarse. The door opened anyway, revealing Claire, Ethan's lawyer friend. Adam felt his stomach drop. This couldn't be good. "Hello, Adam," Claire said, her voice cool and professional. "I think it's time we had a chat, don't you?" Adam slumped in his chair. "I suppose there's no point in denying anything." Claire shook her head, taking the seat across from him. "No, there isn't. We have everything, Adam. The falsified accounts, the offshore transfers, even records of your meetings with Lily." Adam closed his eyes, feeling the last of his hope drain away. "What does Ethan want?" "Everything," Claire said simply. "The company, your assets, your reputation. He wants you completely ruined, Adam. And legally, there's nothing you can do to stop it. Adam laughed bitterly. And I suppose you're here to offer me a deal, some way to salvage something from this mess. Claire leaned forward, her eyes hard. No, Adam. I'm here to deliver a message. Ethan wants you to know that by this time tomorrow, you'll have nothing left. Your career will be over. Your reputation in tatters. And Lily, she's already gone. Adam felt the room spin around him. This couldn't be happening. It wasn't supposed to go like this. You might want to consider leaving town. Claire continued, standing up. Things are about to get very unpleasant for you here. As she reached the door, Adam found his voice. Wait, just tell me one thing. How long? How long has Ethan known? Claire paused, her hand on the doorknob. Long enough, Adam. Long enough to make sure you never saw it coming. With that, she was gone, leaving Adam alone in the darkness of his office. He reached for the whiskey bottle with a shaking hand. It was over. Everything he'd worked for, everything he'd sacrificed, was gone in the blink of an eye. And the worst part, he had no one to blame but himself. The courtroom was packed. A sea of faces turned towards a man in the defendant's box. Adam Matthews, once a titan of industry, now sat slumped in his chair, his expensive suit hanging loosely on his frame. The past months had aged him, etching deep lines into his face and turning his hair a premature gray. Ethan Caldwell sat in the front row, his face a mass of cool indifference, but inside, his heart raced. This was it, the moment he'd been working towards for months. The final nail in Adam's coffin. The judge's gavel came down with a resounding crack. In the matter of the state versus Adam Matthews, this court finds the defendant guilty on all charges of embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. A collective gasp went through the courtroom. Adam's shoulders sagged, his head bowing in defeat. Ethan allowed himself a small smile. It was done. As the judge continued, detailing the severity of Adam's crimes and the extent of his punishment, Ethan's mind wandered. He thought of Lily, wondering where she was now. After that final confrontation, she had disappeared into the night, taking nothing but the clothes on her back and the weight of her betrayal. The sound of handcuffs clicking into place brought Ethan back to the present. Adam was being led away, his eyes meeting Ethan's for a brief moment. In that look, Ethan saw a mixture of hatred, fear, and something else. Respect, admiration for a well-executed plan. Ethan shook off the thought. It didn't matter now. Adam was going away for a long time, his reputation in tatters, his fortune gone. And as for his connection to the crime syndicate that had come to light during the trial, adding years to his sentence and ensuring that even if he ever did get out, he'd have nothing and no one to turn to. As the courtroom began to empty, Claire appeared at Ethan's side. It's over, she said softly, placing a hand on his arm. You won. Ethan nodded, unable to speak past a lump in his throat. He had won. So why did victory taste so bitter? Across town, in a dingy motel room, Lily Caldwell stared at the TV screen, watching as her former lover was led away in handcuffs. She barely recognized the man she saw. Gone was the confident, charming Adam she had fallen for. In his place was a broken shell, defeated and alone. Much like herself, she thought bitterly. Lily glanced around the room, taking in the peeling wallpaper and the stained carpet. This was her life now. No home, no family, no future. She had gambled everything on her affair with Adam, on their plan to take control of the company and leave Ethan with nothing. And she had lost spectacularly. Her phone buzzed, startling her. For a wild moment, hope flared in her chest. Maybe it was Ethan calling to forgive her, to take her back. But no, it was Olivia. Her daughter's name on the screen sent a fresh wave of pain to Lily's heart. She answered with shaking hands. Olivia. Sweetheart. I don't. Olivia's voice was cold, so unlike the warm, loving daughter Lily remembered. I'm not calling to talk. I just wanted you to know that we're okay. Me and Jack. We're with Dad. And we're okay. Lily felt tears welling in her eyes. I'm so sorry, Olivia. If you just let me explain, there's nothing to explain. Olivia cut her off. You chose Adam over us. Over your family. There's no explanation for that. The line went dead. Lily stared at the phone, feeling the last threads of her old life slip away. She had lost everything. Her children, her home, her reputation. All for a man who was now heading to prison, leaving her alone to face the consequences of their actions. As the reality of her situation crashed over her, Lily curled up on the grimy motel bed and wept. She wept for the life she had thrown away, for the children she had betrayed, for the woman she used to be. And somewhere in the back of her mind, a small voice whispered that this was exactly what she deserved. Back at the Caldwell mansion, Ethan sat in his study, a glass of scotch in hand. The house felt too big now, too empty. Olivia and Jack were with his parents for the weekend, giving him time to celebrate his victory. More on the death of his marriage. He wasn't sure anymore. His eyes fell on a family photo on his desk. It had been taken just last year at Jack's birthday party. They all looked so happy, so normal. Ethan, the successful businessman. Lily, the devoted wife and mother. Olivia and Jack, bright-eyed and full of promise. It had all been a lie. Ethan drained his glass, the scotch burning a path down his throat. He had won. He had destroyed Adam, exposed Lily's betrayal, protected his children and his assets. He should feel triumphant. Instead, he just felt empty. A soft knock at the door roused him from his thoughts. "Come in," he called. His voice ruffled the scotch and unched tears. Claire entered, her face etched with concern. "I just wanted to check on you," she said softly. "Make sure you're okay." Ethan laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Okay. I'm great. I just destroyed my best friend, exiled my wife, and traumatized my children. But hey, I won, right?" Claire moved closer, perching on the edge of his desk. "Ethan, you did what you had to do. They betrayed you. They were going to leave you with nothing." Ethan sighed. "I know," Ethan said. "I know that. But it doesn't make it hurt any less." Claire finished for him. Ethan nodded, unable to meet her eyes. "I keep thinking about the man I used to be. The man who believed in trust, in loyalty. The man who would have forgiven, who would have tried to work things out. When did I become this?" Claire reached out, taking his hand in hers. "You became this the moment they decided to betray you. You did what you had to do to survive, Ethan, to protect yourself and your children." Ethan looked up at her, seeing the mixture of concern and something else, something deeper, in her eyes. For a moment, he was tempted to lean in, to lose himself in her comfort. But no, he wasn't ready for that. Not yet. Maybe not ever. "Thank you, Claire," he said, gently withdrawing his hand. "For everything. I couldn't have done this without you." Claire nodded, understanding in her eyes. She stood, smoothing down her skirt. "Get some rest, Ethan. Tomorrow's another day." As she left, Ethan turned back to the window, staring out at the manicured lawn that had once been the setting for so many happy family moments. Tomorrow was indeed another day. But what kind of man would he be when it dawned? Months passed. The scandal of Adam's arrest and Lily's disappearance faded from the headlines, replaced by newer, juicier stories. Life, as it always does, moved on. Ethan threw himself into rebuilding the company. With Adam gone and the financial irregularities sorted out, he was free to steer the business in a new direction. He worked long hours, coming home late to a quiet house where Olivia and Jack waited, their eyes always watching him with a mixture of love and wariness that broke his heart. Claire remained a constant presence, both at work and in his personal life. She was there for late-night strategy sessions, for parent-teacher conferences when he couldn't make it, for quiet dinners when the silence of the house became too much to bear. Ethan found himself growing closer to her, drawn to her strength and unwavering support. But there was always something holding him back, the ghost of his marriage, the memory of Lily's betrayal, the fear of opening himself up to that kind of pain again. One evening, as Ethan was preparing to leave the office, his phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. His heart raced as he opened it, a chill running down his spine as he read the contents. "You think you've won, but you have no idea what's coming. Check account number 7,592,341. Your perfect little revenge isn't so perfect after all." Ethan's mind reeled. Adam, it had to be. But how? He was in prison, cut off from all communication, unless... With shaking hands, Ethan logged into the company's financial system. Account number 7,592,341. It was one he recognized, which in itself was a red flag. As the details loaded, Ethan felt the blood drain from his face. Mignon, there were millions stashed away in this account, hidden so deep in the company's convoluted financial structure that even Claire's meticulous investigation had missed it. And the transactions, they all led back to him, to Ethan Caldwell. It was a setup, a final devastating blow from Adam. If this information got out, it would look like Ethan had been the one embezzling all along. He would lose everything. The company, his reputation, maybe even his freedom. For a long moment, Ethan sat frozen, staring at the screen. Then, slowly, deliberately, he reached out and closed the laptop. He took a deep breath. Then another. No, I wouldn't let this destroy me. He had come too far, sacrificed too much. This was just another obstacle to overcome, another battle to be won. Ethan stood, straightening his tie. He had work to do. Weeks turned into months. Ethan worked tirelessly, dismantling the hidden account piece by piece, carefully erasing any trace of its existence. It was dangerous, painstaking work. One wrong move, and everything could come crashing down. But he wasn't alone. Claire was there, working late into the night. Her legal expertise was proving invaluable as they navigated the treacherous waters of corporate finance. And to Ethan's surprise, Olivia stepped up too. At 15, she was already showing a keen mind for business. Her youthful perspective often provided insights that Ethan and Claire had overlooked. It was during one of these late-night sessions that Olivia finally broached the subject they had all been dancing around. "Dad," she said, her voice hesitant, "are you and Claire, you know?" Ethan looked up, startled. He glanced at Claire, who had suddenly become very interested in her screen. "No, sweetheart," he said softly. "Claire is a good friend. She's been a great help to us during this difficult time. But that's all." Olivia nodded. "But you know, if you were, Mom made her choice. You deserve to be happy too." Ethan felt a lump form in his throat. "Thank you, Olivia," he managed. "That means a lot." As Olivia turned back to her work, Ethan caught Claire's eye. She gave him a small smile, warm and understanding, and for the first time in a long time, Ethan felt a flicker of hope for the future. The day they finally dismantled the last of Adam's hidden account, Ethan felt a weight lift from his shoulders. It was done, truly done this time. Adam's final trap had been dismantled, the threat neutralized. As he stood in his office, looking out over the city, Ethan allowed himself a moment of quiet triumph. He had won again, but this time the victory didn't taste bitter. This time he had done it the right way, with hard work, with integrity, with the help of those he trusted. A soft knock at the door interrupted his reverie. It was Claire, a bottle of champagne in hand. "I thought we might celebrate," she said with a smile. Ethan nodded, grabbing 2 glasses from his desk. As Claire poured, he found himself studying her, the way the setting sun caught her hair, the intelligence in her eyes, the strength in her posture. He realized, with a start, that somewhere along the way, his feelings for her had deepened into something more than friendship. "Claire," he began, his voice rough with emotion, "I don't know how to thank you for everything, for standing by me through all of this." Claire sat down next to him, her eyes meeting his. "You don't have to thank me, Ethan. I did it because I care about you, because I believe in you." Ethan took a step closer, his heart pounding. "And if I told you that I care about you too, that maybe I'm ready to move forward." Claire's breath caught. For a moment, they stood there, the air between them charged with possibility. Then, slowly, Claire reached out, taking Ethan's hand in hers. "Then I'd say it's about time," she whispered. As Ethan leaned in, drawing Claire into a kiss that was both an ending and a beginning, he felt the last pieces of his old life fall away. The betrayal, the pain, the bitterness. It was all in the past now. The future, bright and full of promise, lay ahead. As Ethan turned to join his family, a flicker of movement caught his eye. There, across the street, partially hidden behind a tree, was a familiar figure. Lily. For a moment, their eyes met. Ethan saw the ravages of the past year etched on her face. The loss, the regret, the desperate longing for what she had thrown away. He felt a twinge of something, not forgiveness, not quite, but perhaps understanding. They had both changed, both lost a part of themselves in this ordeal. Lily raised a hand, a tentative wave. Ethan nodded in acknowledgement. Then, without a word, he turned and walked away. As they drove out of the neighborhood, leaving behind the scene of so much turmoil, Ethan glanced in the rearview mirror. He saw not just the house fading into the distance, but the man he used to be. The trusting husband, the naive friend, the man who believed in the inherent goodness of people. That man was gone now, burned away in the crucible of betrayal and revenge. In his place was someone new, someone harder, yes, but also wiser, someone who had stared into the abyss of his own darkness and come out the other side. Ethan looked at Claire beside him, at Olivia and Jack in the back seat. His family, his future. He had lost much in the past year, but he had gained something too, a clarity of purpose, a strength he never knew he possessed. As they crossed the city limits, leaving behind the remnants of their old life, Ethan felt a sense of peace settle over him. The road ahead was long and uncertain, but he was ready for whatever it might bring. After all, he was Ethan Caldwell, and he had learned the hard way that the best revenge wasn't just about winning. It was about surviving, about becoming someone your enemies never saw coming. And in that, he had succeeded beyond his wildest dreams.